بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم وصلي عليه. My sincere apologies in regards to the earlier course today that we had with the Tuhfat al-Atfal. We had some issues with the internet. Inshallah, the Tuhfat al-Atfal course will continue tomorrow as normal, inshallah, at 1:15 UK time, inshallah. So now to chemistry of Tajweed el Hurūf. I chose this topic and put this course together for a very important reason. And the reason was that when we study Tajweed, we tend to study Tajweed and we don't really focus on Tajweed al-Hurūf, the how to pronounce the letters and how to pronounce the letters, articulate the letters with the correct Makharīj and the correct Sifat. So hence why we put this course together to cover the Makharīj and the Sifat. Also, the other important topic that again is not discussed in depth is the waqf and the ibtida, where you should pause when reciting and where you are not allowed to pause or stop, and how once you've stopped, how should you continue, and how that affects the recitation of the Quran and how it affects the meaning of the Quran. So inshallah, we're going to be together for 6 days, 6 evenings, inshallah, up until Saturday. Sunday we'll have a break, and then next week, Monday, we will be starting the the chemistry of Tajweed al Hurūf practical session, where we will go through the Quran and I will discuss various surahs, surah, and the various verses, various huruf, and discuss on how they should be pronounced, how the Makharīj and the Sifat and the Wuqūf and the Ibtida should be performed, inshallah. Let's look at some background before we continue, inshallah. A few things I want to highlight. Firstly, what is Tajweed? Okay, if you can't see the screen very well, my apologies. You need to get to a TV screen or a laptop if you're using your mobile phones. But I'll read everything out that's on the screen, so it'll help. And the videos will be remaining on YouTube, so you can come back and visit again. Firstly, what is Tajweed? Okay, Ilm Tajweed is the science that deals with the pronunciation of Arabic letters from the correct Makharīj, places of articulation, along with their correct Sifat and characteristics of letters. That's what Ilm Tajweed is. But more to that, Al-Waqf and Ibtida are also part of Tajweed. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu was questioned in regards to the word tartil, وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا, and recite the Quran with tartil. And that's hukm from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu responded, هو تجويد الحروف, it is the pronunciating the letters with the, obviously with the correct Makharīj and Sifat, ومعرفة, and also the understanding of al-wuqūf, upon the pauses. And obviously with wuqūf, when you stop, you need to know how to start, and that's what ibtida is. So that's basically the summary of Tajweed. So somebody was to question you, what is Tajweed and what does Tajweed consist of? So there's four main aspects of Tajweed. One is the Makharīj, how each letter is articulated, where the letter is born from. Number two, the characteristics that each letter has. Now, every letter has one makhraj, but every letter does not have one sifa. Sifa meaning characteristic. It does not have one sifa. It has numerous sifat. Okay? Sifat is the plural of sifa. Sifa is singular, sifat is plural. So they're your main two aspects in reciting the Quran. Now in sifat will come also your ikhfa, your idgham, your idhar, and all the other rules that you can think of. They are also in the sifat. They are incorporated within the section of sifat. And then you've got your al-waquf, waqf. Okay, how are you going to be pausing? How are you going to be stopping? For example, if the word, say Jannah, okay, Jannah. So we all know what Jannah means, paradise. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq and the ability to work good in this life so that we are given entry into Jannah without any issues and problems and without any pit stops in Jahannam. Ameen thumma ameen. So the word Jannah, if you noticed, I said the word Jannah. Jannah. Okay? How would I write this? If I'm pronouncing it as Jannah with a ha at the end, how would I write this? I would write it with Jim, Noon, and a Ta, which is in circular fashion, marbuta, the round Ta, Jannah. But if I said the word Jannat, Jannat, with the Ta, and I perform the hams upon it, then this is not the round Ta, but rather the long Ta. That looks like a boat with two dots above it. Okay? So Jannah, Jannat. Both these two words have been used in the Quran. Okay? So you need to know when you're stopping on a certain letter, certain word, how are we going to do our waqf here? Just like if I were to recite to you, say for instance, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. The ha at the end, how long am I reciting that for? Okay? How should I do an abrupt stop? Like, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, ha, or should it be a natural stop? وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. Okay? So all of this will be, inshallah, discussed on how to do the waqf, where to do the waqf, and how to start again. So what's the purpose of this tajweed then? Why is it so important? Why are there so many numerous ulama teaching, studying, writing upon this topic? Its purpose is to make a person proficient in correct Quranic recitation without mistakes. Okay, the key thing here is without mistakes. The essence and the purpose of tajweed, ilm tajweed, is so that we don't make mistakes. Okay, mistakes can lead to many issues and many problems. Some issues could be that the meaning has changed. Sometimes the meaning doesn't change. There could be a word that you've changed, a letter that you've changed. It doesn't really alter the meaning, okay? But it is still, having said that, incorrect. Sometimes the meaning does change. And sometimes it even affects your aqaid, okay, your aqidah, where it could become kufr. Something that you say, it is kufr, okay? And you're out of the fold of Islam without even knowing it. So it's very, very important that we don't make errors whilst reciting the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the glorious Quran, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ الذِّكْرِ إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ الذِّكْرِ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. Okay? Indeed, we have revealed this dhikr, meaning Quran, وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. And indeed, we are the protectors of it. So how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect the Quran? He protects the Quran via yourselves and I, and governing us with tajweed, okay? By memorizing the Quran with tajweed. Tajweed is what's helping us and keeping the Quran protected, okay? And as soon as we start changing letters and altering things, it becomes difficult, and can lead to many problems. What is the ruling concerning tajweed? Learning its rules and principles is fard kifaya, okay? Communal obligatory. So what we're doing right now, studying and discussing and learning tajweed, this is the fard that is communal, okay? Meaning if one person within your mantiqa, within your qarya, within your area, within your city is a qari, sufficient for everybody, okay? But if there's no qari, no reciter, nobody in your area who has the knowledge of tajweed, then the area would be questioned and would be in sin. Now, one of my great teachers in Jamiat al-Azhar, Sheikh Abdullah, they mentioned that with the tajweed, the fard kifaya is referred towards every jami' mosque, every masjid that is jami' within an area, okay? So every main masjid must have a person or individual who understands tajweed, understands Quran, and can rectify anybody's recitation within the area. Its application, however, in reciting the Quran is what is fard ayn. It is compulsory upon every individual. Okay. Now here it means that when I recite the Quran, I must recite the Quran with tajweed. Okay, with tartil, meaning هو تجويد الحروف, pronouncing every letter correctly from its correct makharīj with its correct sifat, ومعرفة الوقوف, and knowing the pauses as well and how to stop and start. Okay, I must recite in that manner. Now the question that arises is that how can one know that without the knowledge of tajweed? You must know knowledge of tajweed in order to recite in that fashion. And the response is no, it's not necessary for you to know tajweed, okay? But you should recite the Quran correctly. So it could be that somebody has memorized the entire Quran from a teacher, okay? And he has recited to a teacher and he recites the Quran correctly without any mistakes. Having said that, the individual may not know that this is called a ghunna, this is the ta'rif of ghunna, this is called a mad. Mad is singular, mudud is jam'a. He might not know this is called izhar or idgham or qalqala or any of the terminologies of tajweed. He might not know the definitions of tajweed. Okay, if you asked him what are the full mouth letters, he doesn't know. But when he recites a full mouth letter, he recites it correctly. Okay, which is perfectly fine, inshallah. So that's fard kifaya and fard ayn. Something that is compulsory upon every individual is to recite the Quran correctly, but not necessarily you would have the entire knowledge of tajweed. So that's the ruling concerning tajweed. Okay. So let's look at the next slide. Now the types of mistakes one can make. Okay. So there's numerous mistakes that you could make. These mistakes are categorized by the ulama as major mistakes or minor mistakes. Okay. So major mistakes are called al-lahnul jali. Okay. And they distort the meaning of the Quran. Okay. They will alter the meaning of the Quran, which are, number one, changing a letter, reading a letter, okay, in a manner where you've compromised its makharīj or sifat, or any one sifat, okay? It will alter the letter, okay? And the example here has been given, reading kul, which means to eat, instead of qul with a qaf, okay? Reading kul with a kaf instead of qul, qaf, okay? Qul huwa Allahu ahad, which means say He is Allah, the one, okay? And you recite it as Qul huwa Allahu ahad, eat, He Allah is one. Na'udhu billah. Number two, omitting, okay, or adding an extra alif, waw, or ya. So alif, waw, and ya. Why? Because these are the Hurūf al-Maddiyya, these are the letters of Mad, letters of elongation, and which is a common mistake that we make, especially when we're not very fluent in reciting Quran, we're not very proficient in reciting Quran. What we tend to do is we try to elongate the sound of what we're reading so our eyes can filter ahead and register what's coming ahead. And I'll give you an example. when reciting, for example, some ayah that we haven't memorized, we haven't learned, and we're like, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Okay, now why have I done that? I'm actually looking ahead, and I don't want my son, I don't want to read Alhamdu Lillahi Rabbil, because I'm looking ahead, because I'm not very fluent, I'm not very accurate. Okay, so this mistake comes into existence when you're trying to look ahead and you haven't practiced them ayat and you start elongating. Okay, when you start elongating, this also alters the meaning. How does it alter the meaning? Let's have a look. Omitting or adding an extra alif, waw or ya. Okay, for example, reading allama, elongating the ma, okay, instead of allama, okay, he taught, meaning one person taught. And allama means they too taught. Allama, dual, they too taught. So the meaning from singular has gone to dual. The next one, you've got changing a, there's another one. So reading qala, he said, individual, instead of qala. Where you're supposed to elongate, you didn't elongate. You made the mad shorter. So making mad longer or omitting and making something shorter will also change the meaning. The next one you've got is changing a vowel. Okay, Arabic dialect mark, meaning a fatha, dhamma, or kasra. Okay, changing them. So instead of fatha, you're reading a dhamma. Instead of dhamma, you're reading a kasra. Okay, you're changing the i'rab. Okay, for example, reading an'amtu tu at the end instead of an'amta. An'amtu, I favored. An'amta, you favored. So you favored meaning you're speaking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored us. Okay? So صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, the path of those whom you have favored. And you're reciting صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم, na'udhu billah, which would mean that the path of those whom I have favored. Meaning you are believing yourself to be Allah, which is kufr. Okay? So any sort of these mistakes will change and alter the meaning totally. The last one, vowelizing a sakin letter. A letter that is sakin is silent. Sakin means silent. Okay? Vowelless. A vowelless letter, you're reading it mutaharrik. So, example here, reading khalaqana instead of khalaqana. So khalaqana means he created us. Khalaqana, he created us, instead of khalaqna, we created, meaning Allah created. Not that we created Allah or we created anything. Allah is the khaliq. Yeah? He's the creator. We're the makhluk. We're the creation. So khaliq and makhluk. But by saying khalaqana, which means that, he created us. So Allah saying that, he created us, meaning he created gods. Na'udhu billah. Again, this will be attack on aqidah, would be a major mistake. These are your major mistakes known in Arabic language as al-lahnul jali. Inshallah. I see some comments coming up. PDF book. We don't have a PDF book, unfortunately. The Tuhfat al-Atfal book, you could contact the number that's on the screen. I'll send you the link. You could purchase a copy. we don't have a PDF book version of Makharij or Sifat. The Tuhfat al-Atfal book published by Zainhood Publication, my older brother Sheikh Zain, it's available. You could purchase that from online from Amazon. You get delivery worldwide, and there's 3 bookshops for students who are from UK. You could purchase it from Madani Propagation, Madani Bookstore in Preston. You could purchase it from Darul Makkah in Birmingham. You could also purchase it from IDCI in Birmingham. Okay, next, types of mistakes that can be made whilst reciting the Quran have been divided into 2 groups. Okay, so now this is the second type, type 2. Minor mistakes, which are known as lahnul khafi. Okay, these are the small mistakes, and these are basically mistakes in your temporary sifat, something that is temporary, such as not performing idgham. Okay, so someone's not performing idgham, izhar, iqlab, ikhfa, or not reciting the letter ra with a full mouth when it's supposed to be recited as a full mouth, or when it has a fatha or a dhamma. Okay, that's simply your lahn al-khafi. Lahn al-khafi does not change the meaning, and it won't alter the Quran. However, it will attack the beauty of the Quran. Okay, all of these are to do with the beauty, the rhythm, the unification of Quran and its recitation. So I'm not encouraging you to make minor mistakes, as there are ulama who have mentioned that, who have differed and have also mentioned that lahn al-khafi is also haram, prohibited, just like the lahn al-jali, the major mistakes, whilst others regard it as makruh, disliked. Okay, so it's not something that's encouraged, even though the ulama have classified the mistakes as major and minor mistakes. Okay. In short, those who are capable of reciting the Quran with tajweed must do so, otherwise it is a grave sin. Okay. If a person struggles in recitation, even after exerting great effort, he will receive a double reward. Okay. So by you trying your utmost, somebody has a stutter, can't speak properly, somebody can't pronounce certain letter, you would be rewarded twice. I can't pronounce the letter Sin and Sad correctly, okay, and I carry the title of a Qari, yeah, and I have a stutter. I can't pronounce these 2 letters. You could probably tell when I'm speaking English, when I'm speaking, very difficult for me to say the letter S. But you still have to try, you still have to work hard, and falahu ajran, for you there's double reward, inshallah. So let's move on towards the actual subject that we're here for now. Okay, Makharīj, Sifat, Waqf, and Ibtida. 4 topics that are going to be discussed in this chemistry of Tajwīd el Hurūf, inshallah. Let's look at the first one, and this is very, very important. I'll try to make the PowerPoint slightly bigger. Yep, there we go. So this is very, very important, this section. Makharij is the plural of Makharaj, okay, and it refers to the actual place where letters of the Arabic language originate, okay, also sometimes called the points of articulation in English, okay. According to Ibn al-Jazari, who was a great scholar of Tajweed, and not just Tajweed el Hurūf and the sciences of Qira'at, but also other subjects also. According to him, there are 17 Makharij in total, okay, and 29 letters originate from them in total. So other scholars have disputed. Some have mentioned there are, for example, 15 Makharij. Some have mentioned there's 14 Makharij. Some have even mentioned 11 Makharīj. Okay, so they've differed on the Makharīj. However, that does not alter the number of letters. Okay, it's just like saying that the Lam, Noon, and Ra are three separate Makharīj. Makhraj, Makhraj, and Makhraj. Lam, Noon, and Ra. Another scholar says no, these three are the same Makhraj, meaning he's reduced from 3 to 1, okay, and put same three letters into one Makhraj. So the numbers of Makharij might alter and change. However, the letters in the Arabic language won't alter. So these are the difference of opinion between ulama. Nothing for us to worry about as much, unless you're somebody who's studying Tajweed to a certain level or certain depth. Then obviously you would come across these topics in bigger books for our later date. It is important to learn the names of Arabic letters, the parts of the mouth, the tongue, and the teeth before learning Makharij. So Makharij are very important, but to understand the letter and its place of birth. So when we say the word Makharij, we mean where the letter is exiting from the mouth. What point was it born? What point does it originate from? And that's the place of birth, place of articulation of a particular letter. So it's quite important to understand that. So the first thing we're going to be looking at, I'll just skip ahead, my apologies. Okay, the first thing that we're going to be looking at is going to be the tongue, al-lisan. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the tongue. I think I've lost it on the screen. Yeah, Maulana, if you come and sort the technical issue out. I skipped ahead and I skipped back and I've lost the PowerPoint. Inshallah. So the first point we're going to be looking at is the tongue. Now, just like all the, I went ahead and I went back and I've lost the screen.
Screen share.
Yeah, so if you could either exit and screen share again, it should come back up then.
Having trouble connection.
That's on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's on the Wi-Fi problem. Should be back in a few minutes, inshallah.
Few seconds, inshallah. We'll continue, inshallah. So the tongue is divided into different parts also. The tongue you've got, yes, let's come back up. I've got it. There we are. So the tongue is divided into certain parts as well. You've got the back part of the tongue, okay? Then you've got the middle part of the tongue, and then you've got the front part of the tongue, okay? So they're your three parts to the tongue. Then you've got the side of the tongue, and then you've got the front tip of the tongue, okay? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 potential sides to the tongue, and then you've got the front closer part to the front edges, okay, of a tongue. That's your 6 different parts. So the tongue could be divided into 6 different parts. So each one of these parts has a particular name. So the furthest part of the tongue is known as aqsa lisan. Aqsa lisan meaning the furthest part of the tongue. Okay. So aqsa lisan, the word aqsa, like you probably know, like the Masjid al-Aqsa, which means the furthest masjid. The furthest masjid. Okay. So furthest masjid compared to what? Okay. There's 3 masajid. Okay. You got Masjid al-Aqsa, which are the sacred masajid. You've got Makkah al-Mukarramah, and then you've got Madinah al-Munawwara. They are your 3 masajid. Out of the 3, okay, 2 are in Saudi Arabia. 1 is the furthest masjid. Okay, so this furthest masjid is known as Masjid al-Aqsa. Okay, Masjid al-Aqsa. So same with Aqsa lisan, meaning the furthest part of the tongue. Okay, the furthest part of the tongue. Now, it's furthest part of the tongue from what? From the opening of the mouth. So the opening of the mouth, the furthest part, if I look to my side, that's my opening, the furthest part of the tongue, meaning the back part of the tongue. Okay, that's known as Aqsa lisan. Next, you've got Wasta lisan. Wasta lisan means the middle part of the tongue. Okay, so Wasta lisan is the middle part of the tongue, and then you've got the front part of the tongue, which is known as Tarful lisan. Okay, so you got Aqsa, the furthest, Wasta lisan, the middle part, and then the Tarful lisan, which is the front part of the tongue. With that, the ulama have mentioned the division of the tongue due to it being very important. Okay, this is a very, very important, because certain letters will come from Aqsa, certain letters would come from the Wasta lisan, and certain letters will come from Tarful lisan. Okay, so hence why the ulama have pinpointed a particular area for you so that you can understand where the letters will originate from. And then you've got the whole side of the tongue. Okay, side of the tongue. The side of the tongue is known in Arabic language as Hafatul lisan. Okay, so the Hafatul lisan is a sign. It's from the back of the tongue. Okay, so where you got the Aqsa side, Hafa, all the way around to the front. Okay, that's known as your Hafatul lisan. And then you've got the front part of the tongue. Okay, the front part of the tongue, which is known as Ra'sul lisan. Ra's means the head. Okay, so meaning the head, meaning the top, the tip, right at the front part of the tongue. Okay, which is known as Ra'sul lisan. So you've got Aqsa lisan, the furthest part of the tongue. Then you've got the Wasta lisan, which is the middle part of the tongue. And then you've got the Tarful lisan, which is the closest part to the front of the mouth. And then you've got the Hafatul lisan, which is the side of the tongue. And then you've got the Ra'sul lisan, which is the head of the tongue. Tamam? So they're your divisions that your tongue's divided into. And then you've got the last 6th one. It refers towards the closest part to the front. Adna Hafatul lisan. So Adna means close. Adna Hafatul lisan. So Hafa is the side, okay? And Adna meaning the closest side to the front. That's your division of your tongue. I had to explain it because I can't get the PowerPoint up for some reason. We're using 2 different networks and 2 different machines to get this to run. No, look. Okay, I think I might have it. Subhanallah, alhamdulillah. Okay, you can see that now as I was talking. You've got Aqsa lisan, which is written right in the top. That's your Aqsa lisan, okay, which is the back of your tongue. Wasta lisan, which is the middle of your tongue. And then Tarful lisan is this front area. All of this front area, semicircle, okay, on this front. The Hafatul lisan, okay, Hafatul lisan is the whole side, all the way to the front. Yeah, all of this is known as Hafa, okay. And then you got Adna Hafa. Adna means the near part, the closest part of what? The whole Hafa. So not the whole Hafa, just near part, meaning the near to the front part, this area here. And that's from not just this side, but both sides, this side included. Okay? And the ra's means the head. Okay? Muntaha means the finish, the intaha. Yeah? The finish of Hafat al-Lisan, the end of the Hafat al-Lisan. So that's your tongue division. Now, all the letters from the tongue will be divided in, and they will be articulated from somewhere in this section. Okay? Either they'll be from the back of the tongue, middle of the tongue, front of the tongue, side of the tongue, from the Ra's al-Lisan, from the front part of the tongue. It will be somewhere from there. It's very important for you to learn these terminologies, because as we study through the Makharīj and Sifat, and especially next week, okay, next week is a very, very important chemistry of Tajweed part 2, very important, which is neglected. Once we've learned Tajweed, we'll learn Tuhfat al-Atfal or Muqaddimah al-Jazariya or Salsabil Shafi, or if we learn some other matan on Tajweed, we think we become Qaris, and we don't actually implement that onto the Quran, and it's a disaster. So next week we're going to be going through all of this again, but in practical terms on the Quran. It's very, very important to learn these terminologies, inshallah. Next, we're looking at the teeth. Okay, teeth are also divided. Okay, just like the tongue, the teeth are also divided. Okay, teeth are called in Arabic asnan, asnan. Okay, which means teeth. Okay, الثنايا العليا, الثنايا, the front two teeth. Okay, I normally refer to them as the Bugs Bunny teeth. Okay, they're your ثنايا. عليا means the ones above. Okay, عليا means above. And then you have الرباعيات. Okay, الرباعيات are the two next to your Bugs Bunny teeth, on the left and the right. Yeah, that's your four teeth at the front. These names are very, very important. Okay, and then after these four, the next two, which are your Dracula looking teeth, the sharp ones, they are known as anyab. Okay, anyab. After that, you've got your ad-dawahik. Ad-dawahik is from the word dihk, to laugh. And the reason why they're called laughing teeth is when you laugh, they become zahir. Okay, so you can look in front of the mirror or on your selfie phone and laugh, and you'll see them becoming zahir. They like the ones after your Dracula looking teeth. After that, you've got your next three grinding, eating teeth, which are known as at-tawahin. Okay, at-tawahin, these are your teeth that you use to grind your food. Okay, when you're eating, they're your grinding teeth, the ones that you use to grind your food before you can consume it and digest it and swallow it. So they're known as at-tawahin. The last one, an-nawajidh, are your last and final tooth at the back of your mouth. Okay, some may call this tooth as the wisdom tooth. So these are your names of your teeth. They're very important to learn. But the next term that I'm going to mention now, it is very, very important. Al-adras. Al-adras. Adras are your al-dawahik, al-tawahin, and al-nawajidh combined. Okay, you can see here on the side, you've got the name mentioned here. You can see I'm pushing the cursor over it. Al-adras, molars. Okay, these are your important teeth. So from here, al-dawahik, al-tawahin, you got the three here, and the al-nawajidh. Okay, al-nawajidh. So these four, okay, al-dawahik, the three, tawahin, 4, and then al-nawajidh, the last one, 5. These 5 combined together are known as al-adras. Al-adras, this terminology is very, very important. Okay, it's We're going to be discussing this when we come to the letter Dad. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this again. I'm going to mention this again. So try to memorize that term, al-adras, in the Tuhfat al-Atfal textbook. I'll tell you what page we're on. Page number 19. So you can see page number 19, okay, where this is mentioned. So very, very important when you come onto the topic of the Makharīj of letter Dad, inshallah. The next terminology that we need to be looking at is not the teeth, but your palate, known as the hanak. Okay, ha, noon, and kaf. This is another very, very important part of the mouth, and it plays a key role in quite a few letters that are pronounced from the tongue. Okay, it's been divided into 4 parts. Okay, 4 parts. The first part is al-litha. Al-litha. Okay, you can see it here at the top. Al-litha. Okay, al-litha. And you've got the English translation there, the gum. Okay, the gum. And just behind the al-litha, you've got the little rigid bridge area. Okay, so if you roll your tongue back from your thanaya ulya, you should remember now what your thanaya ulya are, your front 2 Bugs Bunny teeth, right? Get your tongue to your Bugs Bunny teeth, roll your tongue back on the roof of the mouth. Yeah, the roof of the mouth. Roll your tongue back. You should feel some sort of speed humps. Yeah, a little ridge, a little bumpy surface area, and that's. Astaghfirullah. Right, messed it up again. Alhamdulillah, I got it back. Athanaya ulya. No, I haven't got it back. This is the teeth. I've got it back. Alhamdulillah. I'll try not touching the machine again. So you've got the ridged area, which is known as muqaddamul hanak. Okay, hanak means the palate. In Urdu, it's called talu. Talu in Urdu. In Arabic, it's called hanak. In English, it's called palate. Okay, so this is the muqaddamul hanak. Muqaddamul hanak means the front portion or front part. Okay, what's being brought forward, the front side of the hanak. Okay, which is the bumpy part. Then you've got the al-hanakul azmi. Azm in Arabic means bone. Okay, which is in blue. This blue area here, you could read it here. Al-hanakul azmi, and this is the area. So as you roll your tongue back, you'll have your gums. After your gums, you've got the bridgy area, the rigid area. After that, you've got the bony area. Okay. Now this bony area is quite crucial when it comes down to eating. When you eat, your palate plays a great role in chewing up the food, because if you had a soft hanak, soft palate, soft talu, then you would, and if you were eating sharp food, it would end up piercing your skin. So it's a rigid, solid bone area that stops anything piercing into your hanak. So that's the bony upper part, and that's known as, that's directly above the wastul lisan, the middle of the tongue. The last part, al-hanakul lahmi. Okay, al-hanakul lahmi is the meaty part. Okay, the meaty, the soft part of your palate, and that's when you start rolling your tongue back. You'll get the gums first, then you'll get the rigid area, then you'll get the bony area. After the bony area, you will arrive at the soft meat right at the back of your mouth. Okay, and you'll feel it going soft, and it's physically impossible for you to roll your tongue right the way back and feel the entire area. Okay, the hanakul lahmi. If you could do that, subhanallah, don't choke yourself out. So that's the division of your hanak. And next to the word, if you look at right at the top here, you've got the same word again, al-a'la. Al-a'la, al-hanakul a'la means the hanak, the palate, the talu, a'la meaning the upper palate, meaning the roof of the mouth, yeah, the ceiling of the mouth. That's your hanak, inshallah. Hope everything's making sense, inshallah. So that's your tongue, we've completed, teeth, we've completed, and now we're moving on to the next part. Throat will be divided, it will be discussed in depth, as it's an important area which is divided into 3 parts. Okay. Now, throat is somewhere where a lot of misunderstandings happen. A lot. The throat is the area where, one, you can't see it at all. You can't even feel it. You could feel your teeth, for example. You could roll your tongue around. You could count. You could look in the mirror. You could probably rip some of your skin back and see your teeth. Yeah. You could see your tongue. You could look up. You could get some mirrors into your mouth. Go to the dentist. Get a picture of your mouth area. And you could see your palate, your hanak. The area that you can't see is your throat. Okay, so this is a very complicated area. And this is where majority of mistakes are made. And these majority of mistakes are made due to neglect. Okay, not due to stutter. Your stutter is to do with your tongue and your teeth. Okay, your throat is nothing to do with your stutter. Okay, so mistakes from the throat are mawquf, are subjected to our own neglect of study, neglect of practice. Okay, so this is a very important issue, a very important part of Makharīj el Hurūf. Okay, and hence why we're going to be looking at this in a little bit of depth. So let's look at this now. The throat. The throat is divided. Okay, the throat is divided into 3 parts. The first part we're going to be looking at is the word again, aqsa al-halq. Aqsa means the furthest part. The furthest part of the throat. Okay, so where is the furthest part of the throat? Aqsa al-halq. Now, for those who have studied Tajweed, okay, I can't ask you the question because you can't really respond back. Having the course on YouTube live, that's the downfall, I guess. If I was to ask you, with your previous knowledge of Tajweed, okay, ignore what's on the screen. Let me move that back. Ignore what's on the screen. Your previous knowledge of Tajweed. If I was to ask you that, can you put your finger at the place where you could find aqsa al-halq? And I can guarantee you that 9 out of 10 students watching this tutorial would end up putting their finger right at the bottom of the neck here. Okay, just above the collarbone. 9 out of 10 would put their finger right at the bottom. I can't. Right at the bottom here. So that's your neck, right at the bottom of your neck. That's 9 out of 10 students would put it here. Okay, and not just 9 out of 10 students, but 9 out of 10 teachers, because the same 9 out of 10 students will in the future become 9 out of 10 teachers, and they'll all point here. Okay, the 1% who haven't put it here would then be further divided into 2 categories. Half of them would probably even go below toward the chest. Okay, and if they don't put the finger there, they will be pronouncing the aqsa al-halq from here, from the chest. Okay, and the other half, I would say, with the husn al-dhan, with good intentions and good feelings and good opinions, I would say that they have got the makhraj correct. So where is aqsa al-halq? So the throat in Arabic language is called halq. Okay, halq is the throat. Throat is not the neck. Okay, there's a difference between neck. This is my neck. In Punjabi, Urdu, we say gardan. Okay, so this is your gardan area, your neck. Okay, but the throat is within the neck, and it's not the neck. Okay, so we've lost the slideshow again. It'll come back up, inshallah. So the throat is within the neck. Okay, they're not the same thing. Okay, and they're not the opposite. The neck being within the throat. Now, why is it important? Because you've got two letters that are pronounced from Aqsa al-Halq, okay, which are Hamza and Ha. So Hamza and Ha being originating or articulated from this area, it becomes very difficult for us to pinpoint. Like I said, you can't see the Makharīj, you can't feel the Makharīj with your tongue, you can't open the mouth in front of the mirror and see the Aqsa al-Halq. So where is Aqsa al-Halq? Aqsa al-Halq in English is known as larynx. Okay, L-A-R-Y-N-X, larynx. The vocal cords are behind this cartilage. Okay, so larynx in English language is called the voice box in Punjabi. In layman terms, it's known as voice box. So where your voice box is, that's the Aqsa al-Halq. Aqsa al-Halq is where your voice box is. So in Tajweed, this part of throat is referred to as Aqsa al-Halq, where your larynx. Now where is your larynx? Your larynx sits behind the cartilage. Okay, which cartilage? This cartilage is a bone that's very flexible. It absorbs a lot of pressure, a lot of beating, and it protects the voice box. What does the voice box look like? If you all went onto YouTube after this lesson and done a little research on YouTube and search up the word larynx, voice box, you'll see pictures, videos, different doctors for different reasons, medical reasons, showing you what a voice box looks like. Now, this voice box, I'll zoom in a bit. If you look, I've got Adam's apple here. Okay, your Adam's apple is your cartilage. Your Adam's apple will protect your voice box. Voice box is a paper thin muscle. Paper thin, literally like paper, okay? Two pieces with a little gap in between, okay? And the air would pass through, okay? As the air and the pressure pass through, it vibrates the voice box. As it vibrates, it creates a sound. So if I was to make a sound, if I just breathe out, there's no sound in that. It's me breathing normal, okay? Now, if I was to bring a little bit of tension into my voice box to generate a sound, it will become like, so this sound I'm generating, I'm using the air from my lungs, vibrate against the voice box, and it generates a sound, okay? And then I can control this sound. So how do you do that? I basically use my abdominal muscles to increase the pressure using my what's it called? Your diaphragm. So I use my diaphragm to push the air out of my lungs to generate that higher pitch. Okay, so this is using the voice box. So even the melody maqamat, again, you're using the voice box. And how you're doing that? You're pushing. And even to soften sound, you're relaxing the muscles of your larynx, your voice box. For example, from I'm relaxing the my voice box, my larynx, my hanjara, okay, and getting the voice to come out softer. Now, the two letters that are pronounced for this makhraj, okay, are known as hamza and ha. Now, when we pronounce the letter ha, this is the ha, not the ha in the word halwa, okay, or ar-rahman. This is the softer ha. So your larynx is able to make the softer sound, and it's also able to make the strong sound, like in the hamza, a, 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 a. So where this sound a comes from is right behind your Adam's apple. A, a, a. Now your ha should come from the same place. But what do we say? No, to our students. No, the ha comes from the chest. So we read it as وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, ha, from the chest. Okay? Ha, ha. So we're actually not reading a letter. We're actually not reading a letter. We're just reading وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. And you're breathing out. But the difference is you're breathing out very heavy. Ah, makes sense? If it makes sense, just shout, scream, say anything in the comments. Anything. Jump. So I understand that you understand, so I can move on, because the huruf al-halqiyya, the throat area, is the most complicated part of Makharīj el Hurūf. Okay? The next closest one is the letter Dad. But we'll come to that inshallah. At the minute, it's the halq. We're looking at the incredible halq, okay? With the qaf, not with the k. So this makhraj, the hamza, which is quite sharp, comes from this makhraj, and also a very soft letter, which is the letter ha, ha. So ha, ha, not ha, and breathing out. So you've got to be very, very careful on that, inshallah. So asl halq, the letters hamza and ha are pronounced by the larynx, which is the furthest part of the throat, without raising the root of the tongue or narrowing the air passageway. Okay, so there's no tension, no movement in the throat area. So just using your larynx, your hanjara, your voice box, inshallah. The second part of the halq is the middle part, which is known as wastul halq. Okay, wast again means the middle. Okay, middle part. This is the middle part of the throat. In English, it's called the epiglottis. Okay, now epiglottis is a flap, little piece of meat, little piece of muscle again. Okay, near the root of the tongue. Okay, and above the larynx. So it's above the voice box. So where your Adam's apple is, just above that, you will have your epiglottis, which closes the windpipe when swallowing food in order to prevent food from entering into the lungs. That's the function of this piece of meat. Alhamdulillah, I've got one thumbs up, one person understanding. Alhamdulillah. So this epiglottis, it's a little piece of meat, okay? It sits at the root of the tongue. It stops the food, okay, going into the air passageway. So now you've got two pipes that run within your body. As you can look in this place here, at the front, you've got a bigger pipe. At the back, you've got a smaller pipe. Yeah, the first image in the top left-hand corner. Slightly enlarge it. Okay, so you've got the bigger pipe in the front, a smaller pipe in the back. The front pipe is for your breathing, your oxygen. The second pipe here at the back, okay, that's for your food. So as your food comes in through your mouth, okay, this epiglottis just here, it comes down and it closes the pipeline for your oxygen, allows the food to go around the back of your neck, okay, around the back here, and sends the food down the food pipe. Okay, now this is a very, very important piece of flesh. Without this piece of flesh, you and I would not be alive. Okay, because we would get food and water going into our lungs, and we will drown without even physically being in the sea. And that's how somebody drowns in the ocean. You're trying to breathe, and as you're going, you take it in water instead. Okay, and the water would go into your lungs. You can't breathe, and you'd be dead. So the food and water need to go into the food passageway. Why? You know, when you have a baby and you're feeding the baby some milk, and what does the mother do to the baby afterwards? She rubs the back of the baby. Yeah, she rubs the back to digest the food, to make sure that the milk that the baby has drank has gone into the stomach. Okay, it's not stuck in the back. Yeah, so she's rubbing the back of the neck. Okay, and then the back, because that's where your food pipe is. Similarly, when you're eating a nice hot meal, okay, and you end up choking on something, what does your companion do? They give you a slap on your back. Yeah, the slap around the back of the neck, on your back, to make sure that food either comes out or goes down when you're choking. Yeah. When it comes to breathing, that's in the front. Okay. And naturally, your air pipes are open. Okay. Why? Because we're constantly breathing. We're breathing every second that we're alive. You know, since this lesson started an hour ago, I don't know how many times I took a breath in this hour, but during this hour, I probably had a couple of sips of water. I had no food. Okay, so air is primarily your focus to be alive, and then secondary is your water, and then your food, etc. Okay, so without air, you wouldn't last 5 to 10 minutes, you'd be dead. Whereas food and water, you could last, you know, water you could last a couple of days, and food you could last for like 40 days without food. So that's the second part of the halq, epiglottis, which is at the root of the tongue, right at the back, above the cartilage, above the larynx. From this area, you've got 2 letters, and the letters are Ain and Ha. Ain and Ha. Now you notice these 2 letters, when you're pronouncing these 2 letters, there's a little twist in them. When you're pronouncing the letter Ain, there's actually Ain, so sound, that's my epiglottis moving and, you know, adjusting the passageway, narrowing the passageway to create and generate that sound. Similarly with the letter Ha, ha, that whistle sound. How am I getting that? I'm actually closing my epiglottis to such an extent that I'm leaving a very narrow passageway, very narrow space for air to come out. Okay, and that makes that whistling sound, that generates that whistling sound. Ha, ha, yeah. You know, like how the martial artists in the training, ha, ha, a little like that. So they narrow the air passageway with the epiglottis to create that very thin and sharp sound. The letter Ain, which is a very difficult letter to pronounce, okay, and this letter Ain is pronounced by your epiglottis, okay. Until you can't work and exercise your epiglottis, you are never going to be pronouncing these 2 letters correctly. Hence why huruf al-halq are very difficult. Why? Because they are coming from an area which we can't see with our naked physical eye. So what's the halq? You got the letters Ain and Ha are pronounced by the middle part of the throat by narrowing the air passageway using the epiglottis. Okay, again, epiglottis, search it up on YouTube. You can watch loads of different medical doctors talking about epiglottis and the function of an epiglottis and what an epiglottis actually does. So this is the exact place where the letter originates from. Okay. Next, which is the third and final place within the throat. Adna al-halq. Okay, Adna al-halq, this is the nearest part of the throat. Remember the word Adna? Small. meaning closest. Adna al-halq. This is the nearest part of the throat to the mouth, which is used, okay, with the root of the tongue for pronunciation. So where your tongue actually finishes. So imagine this is my tongue, okay? Where my watch is, that's the boundary. Imagine that's the boundary. It's not literally that big, but imagine for momentarily, that's the boundary. Well, that's my tongue. That's my front of my tongue. And this is my halq. So where your tongue finishes and your halq starts from, that area is the adna al-halq, the last portion, just before it becomes the mouth. Okay? So the throat, al-halq, has 3 makharij from which 6 letters originate. And this is the last one. So adna al-halq, the letters ghain and kha are pronounced by raising the root of the tongue in adna al-halq. So gha, gha, kha, kha, gha, kha. So ghain, you could, if you pronounced it and scream and shout behind your computers and screens, you notice there's like a gargling type of sound. Gha, gha, gha. So when you would gargle water, that's the area you're looking at. Gha, not the tongue. Now in Urdu, maybe in Bengali, maybe in Hindi, maybe in Pashto, I don't know, maybe in Malay. Yeah, Sidna. In Malay, how would you pronounce the letter ghain? From the mouth or throat? From the mouth. Yeah. So even Malaysians will pronounce it from the middle of the tongue. Yeah. Even in Pakistan, in Urdu, we would pronounce the letter ghain from the middle of the tongue. Yeah. Or back of the tongue. I don't know about Hindi and Bengali and Pashto and other languages, Russians and whatnot. I don't know. Urdu, I do know. Nirpuri, I definitely know. And Malay, definitely. You pronounce it from the middle of the tongue. Okay? And I'll give you an example. If I said the word ghibat, 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 okay, in Urdu. Yeah, so I'm not speaking ghiba. In Arabic, it would become ghiba, ghiba, ghiba. In Urdu, ghibat, ghibat. Yeah, so you've got the letter ghain being pronounced from the tongue and letter ghain being pronounced from the halq. Where should the letter ghain be pronounced from? Halq, huruf al-halqiyya. Yeah, from the halq, which is not wast al-lisan or aqsa al-lisan. Okay, so just like in Urdu, another word would be like can't think of another word in Urdu, the ghain. I don't know. If anybody speaks Urdu and you know a good word in Urdu, and you're using the word ghain and it's pronounced from the middle of the tongue, write into the comments, inshallah. I'll share it. So after the letter ghain, just above the letter ghain, you've got the letter kha, kha. And with the letter kha, you actually get a very strong vibration, yeah, in the meaty part of your hanak, hanakul lahmi. So hanakul lahmi is the meaty part of your hanak. In this area, you actually get a very sharp vibration. Somebody's written ghafoor, perfect. Ghafoor. So ghafoor, yeah. Ghairat. I had that word in my mind, ghairat, but I had a letter ba before it. So ghairat, ghafoor, ghafir. All of these words, we're using the letter ghain from the middle of the tongue, which is incorrect. So it should be from the halq, not from the tongue. So just above the letter ghain, you've got the letter kha. Okay, so when you pronounce it, so if everyone scream out the letter kha, okay, I can promise you nobody can't hear you apart from yourself, and I can't hear you, and I'm actually doing live on YouTube, so it's more embarrassing for me, but I think everyone should do it. The letter kha, 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 That sound there is actually vibrating at the hanak lahmi. Lahmi meaning meat, lahm, the soft part. So I could feel it. So there are your two letters that originate from the adna. Okay, adna meaning the closest part. So adna al-halq, the closest part of the throat. So now, the actual size of a throat is actually this small. Okay, tiny, literally tiny. Probably half of the length of your finger. Half the length of your finger, where aqsa al-halq and wast al-halq and adna al-halq originate from. Okay, they're very, very close. I don't have my the materials, teaching materials here with me in Egypt. But inshallah, when I go back to UK next month, I've actually got the model of the or sculpture of the halq, and you can actually see where the hanjara is. Hanjara meaning the voice box. Okay, hanjara in Arabic, and I think in Urdu it's also hanjara. Then you got wast al-halq, which is the epiglottis, and then you got adna al-halq, which is at the root of the tongue. So I've actually got the model that you could actually look at, but if you went to YouTube, I'm sure you could find loads of decent, clear, copyrighted images, inshallah, that you could explore and learn from. So these are your huruf al-halqiyya, these are your letters of your throat. Last point I would like to mention, in regards to the scholars, or not scholars, but I would say our teachers who have misunderstood this halq, incredible halq, and they've mentioned that the aqsa al-halq, the letters ha comes from the chest. I just want to talk a little bit further about that. It is virtually impossible for any individual to pronounce a letter from below your hanjara, below your voice box. It's impossible. The first ayah that was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Iqra, read. So you're not reading the Quran. If the letter ha comes from the chest, that's below your hanjara. So you're not technically reading it. You're breathing the letter ha. So it should be, Iqra wa nafis. Read and breathe Quran, and which is not the case. So the Quran should be recited, okay, and recited with words, with letters, and these letters only come into existence once the air has passed through the hanjara, and the hanjara being behind your voice box, behind your cartilage, so where your Adam's apple is, okay. So below your Adam's apple, there is no makharaj. There is no makharaj. And if any individual would like to argue and debate with me and say, no, the letter ha comes from the throat, then I would give them my logic and say, my letter ba comes from my right hand, my letter qaf comes from my left hand, and letter sin comes from my left shoulder, and letter dad comes from my right shoulder, and that's it. So tajweed would be distorted, and you will ask me for evidence, and I won't have no evidence. And just like you don't have evidence that the letter ha comes from the chest area. I hope that makes sense. Huruf al-halqiyya are very, very important, and they're very, very difficult. I understand for non-Arabs, it's very difficult at times to pronounce, especially if your mother tongue is very similar to Arabic, like Urdu is, for example. Loads of words are borrowed from Arabic. Same like Farsi, loads of words are borrowed. Same in Pashto, loads of words are borrowed from Arabic. Like, so many. Istiqamat, yeah, Mustaqim, Jannat, Jannah, Jahannam. All these words are from Arabic. Tanawul, aap khana tanawul farmaye. Tanawul, it's an Arabic word. So there's so many. Like the sister that mentioned Ghafur. Ghafur is an Arabic word. Yeah. Even the word, the next comment we had ghairat. Even the ghairat is an Arabic word. Yeah. So these are all Arabic words that have been borrowed by Urdu, borrowed by Farsi, borrowed by Pashto, and borrowed by many other languages. Just even English has borrowed words from Arabic. You know, the word algebra. Algebra is not an English word. It's a borrowed word from Arabic. So there's loads of, especially now. Now it's now I think Arabic is borrowing more from English than English is borrowing from Arabic. But at one point, when Islam and the Muslims were, you know, top of the world in education and understanding of knowledge and sciences, you know, zero. You know, even the Arabic letter, the numbers, they were from Arabic. So the Muslims were the ones who invented the algebra. Muslims were the one who invented the zero in mathematics. So Muslims were number one in the world when it came to science, mathematics, and engineering and astrology. Even, you know, the street lights. Did you know who were the first to create or to invent the street lights? It was here in Egypt. Egyptians were the first to generate street lighting. So even social security, you know, in UK and Europe and America, you get these social benefits. We don't get them as much now in Egypt and in Pakistan and other Muslim countries. But this social security and social benefits and free NHS and free medication and free education and, you know, free food for children when they're born, all of this was started, you know, by the Muslims in the time of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So I mean, Islam at one point was very dominant, but unfortunately, due to our own, I don't know how to put it, but weaknesses, we are not leading the world at this moment in time. So now Arabic language is borrowing words from English language. For example, mobile. So a mobile phone, in Arabic, what do we call it? Mobile. So a telephone, what do we call it? Telephone. Yeah. Okay, we've probably got other words like hatif, but we still use mobile. Mobilak. Yeah, so we add is a zamir of yours to the word mobile. Laptop, Facebook, WhatsApp, So all this new technology that's coming out is coming out from the West and the Far East, China. So, you know, in Arabic, we're catching up. So the huruf al-halqiyya are very, very important. It's very difficult to see the makharij that exist in the halq, but the huruf al-halqiyya begin at your hanjara, at your voice box, and finish at the root of your tongue. So three makharij points I've mentioned in today's session, and there are 6 letters that we've covered that come from these 3. Okay, from aqsa al-halq, which is the furthest part, you had hamza and ha. Okay, and remember with the ha, it doesn't come from below the hanjara, below the voice box, your larynx. And if you are reciting it from below this point, you're not actually reciting the letter. You're just breathing. You're just breathing heavy. Yeah. So you need some medical treatment, which is not normal to breathe heavy. So that's not reciting Quran. So if you're reciting the Quran and your ha is coming from your chest, you are actually minusing and taking away a letter from the Quran. You've basically minus the letter ha from the entire Quran. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense, and it's very important. So hamza and ha come from the hanjara, your voice box, and then from the wast al-halq, the middle part of the halq, you've got the 2 letters that you have to squeeze. You have to squeeze, which are your ayn and ha. Ayn and ha. How are you squeezing them? You're not physically strangling yourself. You're using the epiglottis within your halq to squeeze the air. And then the last one, you've got adna al-halq, which is the closest part of the throat to the opening of the mouth, which is the top of your halq, and there you've got two letters which are the most strongest from the huruf al-halqiyya. You got the ghain, gha, gha, and you got the letter kha, kha, kha. Okay, and that's where you should feel the vibration at the root of the tongue and at the al-hanaq al-lahmi, inshallah. So I think we conclude today, inshallah, with these three Makharīj points. So I would like everybody to, inshallah, go through this again, and you could, the video will be uploaded, inshallah. You can watch it as many times as you want, and practice. And you could pause the screen, and you could take your notes, and then play again on each slideshow for the notes. And those who wish to purchase the book, you can purchase the book. You've got the links marked up on the screen. That's the Tuhfat al-Atfal book you're buying. In there you've got the Makharīj el Hurūf, Sifat al-Hurūf. You've got the whole Tuhfat al-Atfal, which Imam Hafiz Ammar is teaching at Dhuhr time. Again, my apologies for the poor connection during the day, and somebody messaged me. It was the Egyptian internet connection week. No, it's not the Egyptian internet connection. It was actually British UK connection. So Egyptian connection, alhamdulillah, we've been very well. The book's called Tuhfat al-Atfal. Tuhfat al-Atfal, written and published by my older brother, Allama Sheikh Zain Hood al-Azhari, inshallah. So it's in English language. You've got the Makharīj, Sifat, Waqf and Ibtida. You've also got the, you got work book in there as well, exercises. You've also got additional information in this in regards to Qira'at and the ulama of Qira'at. You've also got 40 hadith of Mullah Ali Qari rahimahullah in regards to the fadail of Qur'an as well, inshallah. Barakallah feekum, jazakallah. Inshallah, until tomorrow evening, same time, inshallah, at 9 o'clock Egyptian time, which will be 7 o'clock UK time. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.